I'm here today with Harry Zeiders. Harry is the vicar of Resurrection Anglican Church in Emporia, Virginia. And you all are doing some wonderful things in terms of outreach. And I would love for you to share a little bit about that. So why don't you start by telling us a little bit about Emporia and the community in which Resurrection is located.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. Well, Emporia, as you may know, is on the opposite end of I-95 down near North Carolina. And we are really also on the opposite end of the spectrum in terms of the demographics of our community. So I really look at Emporia in a way as a laboratory for DOMA, because 100% of our population in Emporia represents about 2/3 of the population in the rest of our towns and counties here. And so what I mean by that is 1/3 of our population in Fairfax County or Prince William County are going to be people who are needy in some form or fashion. Another 1/3 are going to be people who are lonely. But that's 100% of Emporia. And so if something works in Emporia, well, then it's bound to work elsewhere. Yeah. And we just need to find innovative ways to reach our neighbors and disciple our neighbors.
So how would you describe what you have been doing?
When I got to Emporia, I came with something still ringing in my ears from my bishop in Ireland when he challenged the clergy there by saying, the Anglican Church used to be the church of the working class. What can we do to reclaim that place in the lives of the working class? And so Emporia is clearly that kind of working class environment. And we happened upon this model of dinner church, which really allows us to put out the welcome mat and to welcome in our neighbors where they're at with Christ, and to allow ourselves to serve them and just to be ourselves with them. No pretenses, just being ourselves, just sitting down at the dinner table with them to break bread together and to see how can we be on the journey to Jesus with one another.
That sounds very wonderful. How would you describe what goes on in a typical evening at dinner church? What would it look like?
Well, my same Irish bishop, he said that Anglican Eucharistic liturgy is a Bible study, followed by a prayer meeting, followed by a meal. And that's what dinner church is. It's not rocket science. It's a simple outline of having a potluck meal together. We also share an agape meal to remember what Jesus did with us and for us. And then we have prayer together. We say the Lord's Prayer in Spanish and English. We offer prayer ministry afterwards. And we have a short charismatic Jesus talk to get into the Word together. And so that's what we do. That's how we disciple one another. Pre-COVID, about 8 members of our Sunday morning congregation would be the disciple makers. And we were getting maybe around 35 people from the neighborhood, about 1/3 of them Latino who would come early for ESL, and then 2/3 Black, and even one Muslim lady from Yemen. And now that may not sound like great numbers for around here, but that was roughly 1% of the population of Emporia. So God was really on the move.
Harry, that kind of outreach is really important in terms of really getting to where people live and helping them to learn a new way of living. That's what discipleship's all about. Talk to us a little bit about maybe some of the challenges for those who are maybe considering trying this in their own congregations. What should they expect?
Yeah, dinner church is not going to offer you a theology of grandeur. So if you want a theology of nice things and things looking right and feeling right, this is not for you. Because this is an ecclesiology of Jesus having dinner with the least, the last, and the left out, as Bill Haley likes to say. This is also not a theology of fly fishing, where we spend endless hours on minute details. This is an ecclesiology of net fishing. You just throw the whole net out there and see, what you drag into the boat. And so that's what dinner church is about. It's about rolling your sleeves up, getting messy, allowing your facility to get messy. And ideally, you wouldn't even host dinner church in a typical church building. you would find some sort of neutral ground in the community where people don't have hurdles to jump through in order to feel like I could go through that door.
And when you think about the foundation that you have to lay for a ministry like this, how would you describe that?
Well, that's a great question, because like any ministry, it's all about relationships. Dinner Church would not work for us in Emporia, and it won't work for you in Northern Virginia or other parts of the diocese unless you've already taken the time to lay a foundation of building relationships in your community. I took my experience from Ireland of trying to build bridges between Catholics and Protestants and realizing that we need to build similar kind of bridges between blacks and whites down in Emporia. And so for me, for example, if I had not taken the time to get to know Linda and Javon Thomas and to allow ourselves to become a part of their ministry, to the apartment complexes, to the trailer parks in Emporia, then I think Dinner Church would have been a flop.
Mm-hmm. So now you have this wonderful community that's gathered, and they have a sense of their own identity as part of the church. Do you have any concerns about what the future looks like? Because in many ways you've got quite an assortment of people from lots of different kind of groups. Can these groups all come together? Can there be a real unity in this congregation?
If we recognize that something like Dinner Church is a legitimate form of church. So Alpha, as you know, frames itself as the front porch to get people into your living room. Mm-hmm. But the problem with most of our churches is our living room looks nothing like the front porch. Mm-hmm. Dinner Church says of itself that we are the living room. Mm-hmm. This is a legitimate form of church. In fact, this is probably more authentically an Acts chapter 2 kind of church than what most of us are doing on Sunday mornings. Mm-hmm. So yes, if we can say yes to Acts chapter 2, if we can say yes to the mess, then we don't need to worry about the integration issue because they're already a part of the church.
Yeah. Well, Harry, thank you so much for sharing. If people are interested in finding out more about Dinner Church and possibly doing it in their congregations, can they be in touch with you and find out more about it from you?
Yeah, absolutely. I love being an evangelist for Dinner Church, and they've got their own website, and Fresh Expressions has a lot of information on them as well.
Great. Very good. Well, thank you so much for sharing today. It's really very inspirational and very, very hopeful. Thank you.